You're not paid to think, Amira. Just fetch coffee. The words hit harder than the silence that followed. Mr. Carter's, in his custom-tailored arrogance, didn't even look up from the conference table as he said it. His voice carried across the boardroom, slicing through Amira's careful notes and poised demeanor like a blade. She blinked, unsure she heard right. I was just clarifying the market data. And now you've clarified your role too, he interrupted, letting out a smug chuckle. We don't need interns trying to run strategy. Laughter. A few soft snorts from the senior analysts. Someone sipped coffee to mask a grin. Amira glanced at the graph she'd spent 3 nights perfecting. The one Carter had just misquoted. This isn't accurate, she tried again, voice even. The conversion rate. Sweetheart, Carter said, dragging the word out like it tasted sweet and bitter at once. Let the adults handle the metrics. Next time just take notes like you're supposed to. She froze. Everyone saw this. Everyone heard it. And no one moved. The room filled with a thick, uncomfortable quiet. Then came the laughter. Not loud, not obvious, but enough. A low chuckle from Kevin across the table. A smirk from Julia, eyes quickly darting back to her screen. Even the head of product avoided her gaze, pretending the lid on his water bottle was more urgent than the moment unraveling right in front of him. No one stood up. No one said, "That's not okay." The silence spoke louder than Carter did. Amira sat straighter, jaw clenched. Every second that ticked by confirmed what she already feared. Her voice didn't carry the same weight here. Not when it came from a young black woman who didn't look like their idea of leadership. I didn't mean any disrespect, Amira began, her voice low but steady. But the numbers matter. If we're pitching this, they need to be right. She saw a few heads turn toward her, surprised she was still talking. Carter leaned back in his chair, smile tightening. Oh, look at that. She's found her voice. Adorable. Her hands trembled under the table, but she didn't flinch. I just want to make sure we're not misleading the client, she added, hoping logic might soften his tone. Instead, Carter scoffed. This is why internships are glorified babysitting. You're here to learn, not lead. Don't mistake exposure for importance. There it was, the boundary. Loud, patronizing, and deliberate. He wasn't just shutting her down. He was drawing a line she wasn't meant to cross. Don't get sassy now, Carter said, that same forced smile plastered on his face. Wouldn't want this to reflect poorly on your review. The implication hit like a gut punch. Beneath the surface of professionalism, a warning curled in his words. He leaned in slightly. These things follow you, Amira. Attitude gets remembered a lot longer than numbers. She met his eyes, really looked at him. The confidence he wore wasn't earned. It was inherited, insulated by years of unchecked power and empty mentorship buzzwords. But still, she felt the weight of his words, the reality that standing up, just once, could cost her everything she'd worked for. Her voice stayed silent, but her spine stiffened. She knew then, this wasn't about a pitch deck. It was about survival. Amira stood, no explanation, no apology. Just her notebook closed with finality, and her heels clicking across the marble floor like punctuation marks. No one stopped her. No one dared. Carter chuckled behind her back, but it was thin now, forced. She didn't let him have her tears. Not today. The door shut behind her, and for the first time in that sterile room, silence felt like shame. The hallway swallowed her whole, but her mind stayed in that room. How did it come to this? She thought back to the late nights, the quiet erasures, the slow build no one else seemed to see. This wasn't sudden. It was years in the making. I got this, Mama. Amira whispered it into the steam rising from her tea, watching the city lights blink outside her tiny window. Every morning started the same. Early, quiet, focused. Her mother never asked her to carry the weight. But she did anyway. A nurse who worked double shifts, raised 2 kids alone, and never missed a parent-teacher meeting. This internship wasn't just a resume builder. It was a promise kept. A dream handed down and reassembled with grit and grace. She was always the first one in the office. Before the espresso machine sputtered to life or the elevators chimed, Amira was there, sharpening her edge. Not because she liked it, but because she had to be twice as good to be seen as half as capable. First generation, first in the room, first to be overlooked, but she stayed ready. Excellence was the armor she wore, and mediocrity not an option. Nicknames already? She asked, raising an eyebrow at the group chat labeled Alpha Execs Only. Don't take it personally, said Jared, flashing a grin. It's just a vibe. A vibe that didn't include her. Meetings held at cigar lounges. Inside jokes built on private school memories and golf tournaments she'd never been invited to. The boys' club wasn't subtle. It was tradition. And Amira? She smiled, took notes, and made mental ones too. Every exclusion carved a sharper edge into her resolve. You're surprisingly articulate. You've got that exotic confidence. Wish I had your sass. The comments never came with malice. That's what made them worse. They were polished, professional racism, wrapped in HR-safe ribbons. And every time, Amira smiled. Not because it didn't sting, but because reacting meant being too sensitive, hard to work with, not a team player. She logged each line like data points in a toxic culture audit, quietly collecting the proof no one else seemed to see or refused to acknowledge. When her chest tightened, she heard her mother's voice. Dignity over destruction. Not silence, strength. Amira knew how they saw her, either invisible or angry, so she gave them neither. Just confidence. Stillness they couldn't shake. Not because she didn't feel the fire, but because she knew how to hold it without burning. A cheap silver frame sat by her keyboard. Her mom's scrubs, her dad's faded military uniform. No one asked about it. But that photo? It held everything. Her why, her warning, and her weapon. So, you're Amira. Impressive resume. Very determined. The pause before determined lingered just long enough to register. Mr. Carter's handshake was firm, practiced. His smile, just shy of genuine. He praised her credentials, all while scanning the room like he'd already moved on. His tone dripped with corporate charm, but behind every compliment was an undertone. Measured, clipped, slightly amused. She'd met men like him before. Ones who thought condescension was subtle if they said it with a grin. Amira leaned forward in the meeting, voice steady. If we shift the targeting parameters by region, Carter interrupted. Let's circle back. Moments later, Logan parroted the same pitch. That's a great idea, Logan. Now that's initiative. The room nodded. Amira blinked, stunned. She glanced at Logan, who didn't correct him. Her jaw clenched. It wasn't just being ignored. It was being erased. Her insight, repackaged in a voice they found more palatable. She scribbled a note in her journal. You're not crazy. It happened. Could you handle the catering for Friday's lunch? She looked up confused. I thought I was assigned the segmentation report. Oh, we thought Logan could tackle that. You're just so detail-oriented. It wasn't the first time. Budget spreadsheets, coffee orders, calendar management, assignments dressed up as praise. Tasks given with a smile that didn't reach the eyes. They called it teamwork. She knew better. It was selective trust, packaged as politeness. Amira spoke softly. It's a pattern. I'm being sidelined. The HR rep nodded slowly, fingers steepled. We appreciate you bringing this forward, but Carter's, well, he's old school. Sometimes people don't realize how they come off. She blinked. That was it? No follow-up, no action. Just a gentle dismissal, disguised as neutrality. A system built to appear supportive until it wasn't. Everyone else had gone home. Amira sat hunched over the analytics dashboard, debugging a module that wasn't even hers. She stayed, not to impress, just to keep up, to avoid giving anyone a reason to say she wasn't trying hard enough. The office was silent, but her mind raced. Every chart she fixed felt like a protest, a quiet reminder. I belong here, whether they see it or not. You've got talent, Amira, Carter said, glancing at her screen. She paused. Was that a compliment? He continued casually. Just don't get your hopes up. These internships rarely convert, especially for, well, you know how it is. Her breath caught. Especially for who? He smiled, like he'd just given career advice. Like he hadn't just punched a hole in her confidence with 6 offhand words. That wasn't guidance. That was a gate closing. And he wanted her to hear it lock. That night she almost quit. Almost, but she remembered her mother's hands, cracked from cleaning, steady with sacrifice. She opened her laptop. Fine. Let them try to ignore her. She'd outwork, outthink, and outlast them. Excellence would be her protest, and her weapon. Amira felt the weight of the room as Carter's voice cut through the pitch. I think we can safely assume that, actually, she interjected, heart racing. The data suggests a different trend. If we tweak the variables here. Carter's smile faltered for a fraction of a second, then returned in full force. Sweetheart, he said, leaning back in his chair, eyes scanning the table. Let the adults handle this. The room froze. His tone was dismissive, patronizing. Amira's stomach twisted as the weight of his words settled in. Her correction reduced to a punchline. She hadn't meant to interrupt, but the data was too clear to ignore. Still, the look on his face, pure disdain, was unmistakable. Her hands trembled, but she didn't flinch. The others were staring at her, some pretending to type, others looking anywhere but at her. Mr. Carter, she said, voice steady but small. The data is flawed. I'm just trying to make sure. He raised a hand, cutting her off. Enough. This meeting isn't for you to question. The laughter rippled through the room, and in that moment, Amira knew. This was no longer just about numbers. He didn't stop there. Carter turned to the rest of the team, shaking his head, like he was about to impart some great wisdom. This is why diversity hires are a risk, he said, the words slow and deliberate, just loud enough for everyone to hear. The room went cold. The laughter had stopped, but the tension hung thick. Some of the team froze, unsure whether to speak, to protest. A few faces tightened, unsure of how to react. Others? They were already pulling out their phones, recording, as if this moment might be worth something to them. Amira's chest tightened, her vision narrowing on Carter. Her blood pulsed in her ears. You heard me, Carter added, eyes gleaming, mocking her shock. Not everyone's cut out for this job, and sometimes it's better to let someone else take the reins. A long beat of silence passed. Amira's mouth went dry. She wanted to shout, to scream, but instead she felt the sting of his words, the weight of them hanging in the air like poison. Carter finished with a flourish, as if he'd delivered some profound truth. His gaze swept the room, daring anyone to challenge him. No one did. The silence was suffocating. No one spoke up. Not a single voice rose in her defense. The team avoided her eyes, some too afraid to intervene, others too uncomfortable to care. There was no support, no solidarity. Amira was alone, standing in the aftermath of public degradation. The weight of their silence crushed her chest, but she stood still, barely holding on to the shred of dignity that remained. They had chosen their side. As the meeting ended, Carter lingered by the door. The others filed out, careful to avoid her gaze, some exchanging whispered glances. Amira, Carter called softly, stepping into her path. She braced herself, knowing this wasn't over. He smiled, his tone suddenly casual, but there was an unmistakable edge. Listen, I don't want you to get the wrong idea, but let me give you some advice. She met his gaze, unflinching. What? He leaned in closer, lowering his voice. If you decide to complain, if you try to make this a bigger deal, just know one thing. People like you don't get second chances around here. You'll be blacklisted. Do you understand? The threat was clear, silent, dangerous. Amira's hands curled into fists, but she held her ground. Amira stood up, her legs shaky as she left the room, her breath coming fast. She couldn't stay there, couldn't let him win. With trembling hands, she dialed HR. I need to speak to someone. It's about Carter now. The walk to HR felt endless, each step heavier than the last, but her resolve tightened. She had to do something. She had to stand up for herself. Maybe they would help. Maybe they'd hear her. The door to HR swung open. She stepped in. The HR rep glanced at her, a faint look of regret in his eyes. But that didn't stop the cold detachment in his voice. Amira, I'm afraid there's not much we can do without clear evidence. You don't have anything concrete. No recordings. No witnesses willing to go on record. Her heart sank. But he cut her off gently. I know it's difficult, but without proof. It's just your word against his. And you know how that usually goes. The words landed like a slap. She could feel the walls closing in, the institutional apathy crushing her spirit. She returned to her desk, head spinning, fists clenched. The weight of the world pressed down on her shoulders, but she refused to break. Her eyes burned with frustration, but her chin remained high. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. The storm was coming, and Amira would be ready when it did. Amira's phone buzzed with a message. It was Elena. Can we talk? I need to tell you something. Amira met Elena after hours in a quiet corner of the office. Elena's face was tense, her usual confidence replaced by something more guarded. He did the same thing to me, Elena said, her voice low, almost a whisper. Carter, the gaslighting, the microaggressions. I've been quietly collecting evidence for months. Amira blinked, stunned. She had suspected she wasn't the only one, but hearing it out loud felt like a revelation. Elena pulled out her laptop and showed Amira an archive of emails, screenshots, and video clips. Evidence of Carter's behavior, his manipulative tactics. I've been waiting for the right moment to act, Elena continued. And now? Now, I'm ready to help you bring him down. The solidarity hit Amira like a wave. For the first time, she felt less alone. The hours passed in a blur. The office felt empty except for Amira and Elena. Their heads bent over the laptop, reviewing every piece of evidence. You've been collecting this for months? Amira asked, incredulous. Elena nodded. It's all here. Emails, conversations, the testimonies of people too afraid to speak up. Carter thought he could get away with it, but now we have something he can't ignore. Amira's heart raced. For the first time, she felt the weight of justice, something solid she could hold on to. Together, they were building the case. Each click of the mouse, each screenshot, a step toward dismantling Carter's empire. They stayed up late, fueled by a mix of exhaustion and adrenaline. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about exposing the truth. The next morning, Amira walked into the office with a quiet confidence that felt different. Her shoulders were back, her posture straight. She wasn't the same person who had stumbled through the last few weeks. The uncertainty was gone. She didn't need to say anything. Her silence was enough. The weight of the evidence in her pocket, the knowledge of what she was about to do, gave her a calm that made everyone else uneasy. She was no longer defending herself. She was preparing for war, and Carter had no idea what was coming. Carter appeared at his usual spot, leaning against the doorframe with his smug grin. Amira, you're still here early. Some things never change, huh? The words stung, but Amira's reaction was different this time. She didn't flinch. Instead, She casually reached into her bag and hit record on her phone. "You know," she said, her voice smooth, "it's funny you mentioned that. I've been documenting everything you say to me lately." Carter's eyes narrowed, but Amira didn't look away. "You should smile," she added. "You're being recorded." The power shift was palpable. She was no longer the one under his thumb. Amira's footsteps echoed in the empty hallway as she made her way to the executive floor. The familiar hum of the office seemed distant now, a world away. Her co-workers glanced up from their desks, some with curious expressions, others with outright surprise. She didn't care. She passed the security guards without a second thought. They didn't stop her. She was unstoppable now. Her destination, Carter's office. She wasn't going in for a confrontation. She was going in with the truth and the power to change everything. No one moved to stop her. No one tried to intervene. It was her time now. She pushed open the door to her father's office. Jonathan Bennett, CEO of the company, looked up startled. "Amira," he said, standing quickly. "What are you doing here?" She walked in, closing the door behind her. She wasn't here for pleasantries. She was here for answers. "I need to talk to you," she said, her voice firm. Her father's face tightened, concern in his eyes. "What's going on?" Amira didn't hesitate. "Carter's been abusing his power. He's been targeting me and others, and I have proof, evidence. Eleanor's been collecting it for months." Jonathan's face paled. "You should have told me sooner." She crossed her arms. "I wanted to earn it. I wanted to prove I belong here, without using anyone's name or connections. But now, I'm speaking up." Her father leaned back, processing what she had said. The silence between them was thick, heavy, with unspoken truths. "You don't understand," Amira continued, her voice catching slightly. "I didn't want to just be the CEO's daughter. I wanted to be here on my own merit. To make it without relying on you, to prove I belonged. That's why I never used my name, my connections. I thought if I worked hard enough, I'd earn my place." Jonathan nodded slowly, the weight of her words hitting him. "I get it," he said quietly. "But you don't have to fight alone anymore." The room fell into a heavy silence as Jonathan Bennett, CEO of the company, took the stage at the town hall meeting. His voice was calm but firm. "Effective immediately," he began, addressing the entire staff. "Carter's employment has been terminated. The company's stance on racism is clear. We have zero tolerance for discriminatory behavior, and we will always hold ourselves accountable." Amira felt a wave of relief wash over her. Public accountability had arrived. Finally, the justice she had been fighting for had taken root in the most powerful way possible. The next announcement sent a ripple of shock through the room. Jonathan's eyes turned toward Amira and Elena. "We're also pleased to announce the formation of a diversity accountability task force, led by Amira Bennett and Elena Williams," he said. "Together, they will lead the charge in transforming our company culture, ensuring that we build a space that celebrates diversity and holds us all accountable." Amira looked over at Elena, their silent exchange saying it all. This was just the beginning. A few days later, a video from that fateful boardroom incident went viral. Amira's calm, composed response to Carter's insults, her dignity in the face of his venom, captured the attention of thousands across social media platforms. On TikTok, it became a symbol of quiet resistance. On LinkedIn, leaders began sharing it as a masterclass in professional poise under pressure. Amira's story was no longer just about her fight. It was about the fight for all those who had been silenced and unseen. The clip ended with Amira's final words, a quiet but firm mic drop. "Thank you for making me unforgettable." The impact was instant. Every doubt, every sneer that had ever been thrown her way was now silenced, not with rage, but with undeniable strength and grace. Her words were simple, but they carried weight far beyond that boardroom, far beyond that office, reaching a world that was finally ready to listen, ready to change. If you were in Amira's shoes, facing everything she did, how would you have responded? Would you have stayed silent or stood your ground? We want to hear from you. Share your own experiences with discrimination in the comments. Let's create a space where our voices can be heard and supported. Like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more stories that confront injustice, spark change, and inspire action. Together, we can keep fighting for what's right. This story was for every Amira who has ever been silenced, overlooked, or dismissed. You are seen, you are heard, and your fight is our fight.